What's up, y'all? Long time no talk, no see. I know. I'm gonna cover why I've been MIA for my channel in another video, but right now I'm gonna share with you this one right here, which was pretty epic. Now, let me kind of give you the background on this video. I've sat on it for most of 2018. This actually happened just about early spring. This might have been late February, early March. Iced out Lake Michigan. Actually happened kind of sooner than expected, and first chance we got, we were out on the water for those browns. It's one of the best times of the year to target browns in the harbors up and down Lake Michigan, and that's exactly what we were doing. And the word was the brown bite was hot, and man, oh man, that was the case today. There was basically nothing you couldn't throw that they wouldn't bite on. It was incredible, from cranks to swim baits. Listen, they were eating anything that was coming in their direction, and so we had a blast. And so for most of this video, you're gonna see a lot of these catches. Caught a lot of them, man. Had a great time. What I want to do though is kind of cover some other things. Audio on this video is terrible. I had audio issues, and so I have kind of like the camera audio playing in the background, which isn't great at all. So I'm going to kind of narrate most of this video, kind of give you an overview of what I was using, what I was thinking, and all of that. And so let's jump into it, man. First off, first catch of the outing right here. Keep in mind the weather conditions. It was cold as hell. I mean, we're talking about, it was in the low 30s, and you know the water temps were probably not much more higher than that. One thing about me you won't see on my channel really is any kind of ice fishing stuff, and it's hard for me to get out into the cold. I did go out here just to suck it up and get out there because the bite was good. And so yeah, we're out there, we're prepared, got the base layers on, got the fleeces on over that. Still, I'm out there with some buddies, my man Rob, my boy Bubba, and so we got the buddy system intact. So again, if you're out here cold water fishing in the kayak, take those precautions. Please play it safe. PFD on, layers, and definitely the buddy system goes a long way for that protection. All right, now let's talk about the tackle and the lures I'm using. Now, you can get out here and fish them with a basic bass cranking rod. I mean, that's all I'm using right now. It's simple. I think it's a 7-footer, might be 7.2, medium action cranking rod, 10-pound fluoro line on there. And the lure for today is a Brad's Thin Fish, and I'm using different colors. I start off with a metallic color. I have a Wonder Bread color, and I believe I even threw the red color, which is the red color is really good in early spring for coho. I'm using those baits. They run really shallow. I'm talking about 4, maybe 6 feet at the most, depending on your line and how far you're casting it out there. But I'm really getting into that 4 to 5 foot range, and the reason is because it's harbor. There's a lot of submerged grass starting to come up, and it's really easy for any other kind of a bait like a flicker shad for it to dig right into the weeds and just constantly come up with weeds. So knowing that, I flipped over and went with the thin fish lures, and they were producing. I mean, these fish were smacking them every chance they can get. Highly suggest you add that to your inventory if you fish Lake Michigan. Again, these Brad's Thin Fish are really good for coho, as well as you see here, these browns in the harbors in the early spring, or late early winter before it freezes over. When they kind of push in there, it seemed to be a really good lure for me. So definitely check that out. And at this point, the way we're targeting these fish, not really using electronics so much as just pitching and casting in and around near cover. In certain situations, casting out into the open water where it's not really open. There's clumps of weeds around there, and these fish were smashing bait fish throughout the morning. And so I was targeting those areas where either saw bait fish cruising along, or along the docks, inside the docks where the boats would normally sit. Those browns were just kind of circulating, all rotating in those areas, and those were kind of like the high percentile places to cast to. Kind of structure fishing, sight fishing to a certain extent. Even though we're not seeing the fish, we're casting to the structure that we see or that we know of. And so in this situation, you really don't need electronics if you're going to get out here and do this kind of fishing. They're all stacked throughout the harbor, so all you got to do is just move around, cast and move. This is a great way to cover a lot of water because you don't need to sit in one spot for too long. You make a couple of casts, you don't get a bite, move to the next spot, cast, and you cover a lot of water, and you'll find those active brown trout. Now, most of these fish we're catching were in the 8 to, I think the biggest one, it's coming up here in a few in the video. I think that one I caught, which was my PB, if I recall, was close to 15, I want to say. It's been a while, but I want to say it was close to that 15-pound range. And throughout this trip, one of my personal goals was to catch one of those German brown trouts. And if you're not familiar with the German brown trouts, they're the brown trout in Lake Michigan that have that mustard, yellow, orangey color to them, where a lot of these brown trouts don't have that color. There are different species within the brown trout species. And at this point, my buddy Rob decided to throw his catch right at me, and the ice cold water splashed all over my face. Listen, at that particular moment, I wanted to jump out of my kayak and go and throw him in the lake. It was horrible. It was so cold, man. But that's how buddies do you out here on the water, man. You see another beautiful, beautiful brown trout, man. We did keep a couple for this outing, stock up for the year. I don't normally take a lot of brown trout. I might take, 1 or 2 in a year. They're not necessarily a favorite of mine to eat, but every now and again, it's nice to have a brown trout in there. So we did keep a couple of them. Majority of these fish are all thrown back. And let me tell you, if you haven't caught a brown trout yet, here's what you can expect. These fish twist, turn, flap all over. They don't really fight so much. They strike pretty well, strike pretty good. But man, once you hook them, it's kind of like dragging in dead weight to a certain extent. They flop around. They wrap themselves all around the line. So it can be a hassle and a pain to deal with them. A lot of times here when I'm trying to net them, I'm kind of indecisive how I want to approach it, because it's like, if I put them in the net, they're going to get the lure stuck in the webbing. It's going to be a hassle to get out. And so do I use the fish grips? Do I go for the net? So this is kind of my experience with dealing with these fish. They flop all over the place. A little bit of a pain to deal with. They were very much similar to lake trout for me. Lake trout kind of do the same thing when you bring them up. They'll kind of just drag themselves in the water and spin on the line and all that stuff. This fish right here was the big fish of the day. This was my new PB right here. Took me a while to fight this one, playing it safe. Again, I'm on 10-pound fluoroline, which is more than enough for these fish in the kayak. The great thing about fishing in the kayak, I continually say this, is that you can go lighter with your gear, because when you are fighting these fish, and when they do drag you around, you are essentially another level of resistance. You are another level of drag. And so you can go a little lighter. If you are planning to harvest and keep these fish, if you're going to throw them back in there, you don't want to burn them out so that they exhaust themselves and end up dying when you throw them back. So if you're going to keep them, you can go a little lighter and get more play out of it if you're going to harvest the fish. The battle continues right here. It's taking me a while to do it. I couldn't quite get the fish in my net, so I had my buddy Bubba pull up next to me and snatch this thing right up out of the water right here. Boom, got it. And that right there is my new PB. And we'll get a final look at this fish right here. Like I said, it was, I want to say, approaching that 15-pound range. The problem with it was the water was so cold. The fish were cold. I wasn't trying to hold on to them too much. My hands were freezing. And eventually I just said, F it. I just F'd it for the, had to do it for the gram. So we had to get that picture in there, lift her up. And yeah, that's the end of that trip, man. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video, y'all. Peace.